Pompeo, former Secretary of State of the United States and Fox News contributor. Great to see you again, sir. Thanks for coming in. Have you seen any major core concessions by the Russians?
David, great to be with you. I was smiling seeing Foreign Minister Lavrov there. He has been around a long time. He was my counterpart when I was a secretary. Wily old fella. Look, the Russians did acknowledge, I think for the first time in the last few weeks, that there are going to be European troops on their border in Ukraine, that is non-Ukrainian troops there. I think that's something that they'd not acknowledged before, accepted. The shape of that security guarantee now is going to include the United States, perhaps not our soldiers, but U.S. support. And Putin didn't squawk that. He didn't come out and say, no, that will be unacceptable, or I'll launch nuclear weapons. Those are all steps along the way. Okay. But quite clearly, I think as Vice President Vance acknowledged, there's still a lot of meat on the bone. There's still a long way to go. Russians are still flying missiles, killing civilians in Kyiv and all across the country. There's still a fair amount of work to do before ultimately President Trump and the world can be successful at getting peace in the region.
Well, and exactly how will the security guarantees come into effect? How will they play out? In fact, one of the things I laugh, it's kind of sick humor, but they want to be part of the peacekeeping troops, which is kind of rich because they would be in charge of keeping out a Russian invasion, which is a little bit contradictory, is it not?
David, that's Lavrov having fun. That is not serious. The Russians won't be part of it. There could be transparency requirements on both sides about what moves inside certain boundaries. We've seen that in other places in the world before. That might be what he means by being part of it. But in terms of the actual security being provided to the Ukrainian people, there won't be any Russian involvement in that whatsoever.
What about the land swaps? I mean, that really is key. And for them to demand, I know you start your demands high and you work. I get that. I understand the way it works. But even to suggest for a moment that they would get all of the Donbass, which is a region that they've been fighting to control wholly for a long time, have been failing to do so, and they just want it for nothing, before they've given away anything major. Is that something that can be dismissed pretty readily?
Yes, David, I think it could be dismissed quite readily. In fact, think about this. The Russians have lost somewhere between 200 and 250,000 soldiers. That's dead. That's not casualties. Casualties are multiples of that. In a decade plus of fighting, the United States lost 50,000 soldiers. I mean, the staggering death toll is very real. Putin knows that. And so when he makes this claim that someone's going to give him some real estate that has been fought over like this, I think he knows that's not right. In the end, President Zelensky is going to have to likely accept that some of the real estate that the Russians have taken, he's not going to be able to reclaim immediately. He won't be forced to recognize it. I think there's a deal in there that can be reached that is fair and just and provides sustainable pick a number, 25 years of peace if we get the security guarantee piece of this right.
There's another player in all this who's not mentioned often enough, I think, and that is a country that you did so much when you were Secretary of State to alert the world to of its danger, and that's China. And the allegiance between China, the axis, if you will, between China and Russia that has developed, particularly during the Biden administration, and the fact that Donald Trump sees that as a great a threat as you do, and is trying somehow through these negotiations to break up that axis. Do you see that happening as a result of what's going on right now?
So two things. First, I think you're right. I think it is the greater threat. The Chinese Communist Party does represent the great threat to the United States over the next decade or 15 years. And I think President Trump sees that and is hopeful that he can bust that alliance up at least a little bit. But, frankly, I think Vladimir Putin's done a lot to bust that alliance. If you're the Chinese Communist Party, you want to pick winners. The Chinese Communist Party picked the Iranians, now badly put on their back foot all across the Middle East. And then he picked the Russians, who couldn't conduct a small-scale war against a greatly outsized military in Ukraine. I think Xi Jinping can see that the West has a superior capability. I think the breakup of the Chinese-Russian alliance is something that will happen in due course because the Chinese Communist Party will conclude that it's not as strong as it thinks it is militarily, and that they will recognize that the United States under President Trump is a serious threat to them if they act in ways that are inconsistent with American interests.
Mr. Secretary, I want to switch off of Ukraine for a second to something that the president wrote about on Truth Social today before he met with the South Korean leader. And it took a lot of people by surprise, and I'm just going to quote it here. What is going on in South Korea, the president asked. seems like a purge or revolution. We can't have that and do business there. I am seeing the new president today at the White House, which of course he's already done. Thank you for your attention to this matter. What is going on in South Korea? We know the North Koreans have spent a lot of time infiltrating the South in the past. Sometimes they've been able to infect the leadership in various ways. Is that what the president is talking about, or what?
David, I think that's what President Trump was talking about. I think he was speaking to the fact that the South Korean government needs to be strong and capable, defending itself, ensuring that the South Korean government doesn't for a moment think that somehow you can negotiate with the North Koreans. We faced that a little bit too when we were having our conversation, when President Trump was meeting with Chairman Kim and when I was meeting with him. We need a South Korea that understands clearly that the threat is from the North Koreans. They're not docile. They're not going to cut a deal with the South Koreans unless they are forced to do so. And so I think the president has seen the political turmoil that's taken place in South Korea. He knows the North Koreans are agitating that. And I think he wanted to make clear to a leader who was coming to visit him today that he was prepared to be very supportive of American interest in the region, but he needed a strong South Korea to be a partner in doing that.
Very good. Former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, great to have you on, sir. Thank you very much. Appreciate you being here.
Thank you, David. Bless you.